लिटरली ना क्लास से देखो कि टीचर से ही देती सबको पता था कोई इसे करता नहीं है और मैंने वो सीरियस किया है कि मैंने बोल चुकी सबको बना किया कंप्यूटर के साथ आपने बोला कि सीरियस दौरान के सामने हमारा बहुत चल रहा है वो ये क्या ऐसा भी आपके साथ कुछ विक्टर्स लोग x1 x2 ऐसे लगा ना उस टाइम मुझे लेक्चर तुम्हारा मुझे लेक्चर से हम ब्रेक कोई बोला आपको तो बात बोलते हैं दिल में भी काम करता है किसी चीज का कौन इस बार हमारे साथ इंग्लिश में हाँ इंग्लिश तो में नहीं मुझे इंग्लिश मैंने नरेटर ऐसे देखो मैंने इंग्लिश में अच्छा मार्क्स आया लिटरेचर में लाया लैंग्वेज में मुझे 35 मिला आउट ऑफ 40 हाँ लैंग्वेज भी बहुत मार्क्स है क्योंकि ना वो प्रीपोजिशन में मेरे मार्क्स है और लिटरेचर में कितना मिला फुल वाह मैं एम में पढ़ के ही नहीं गई हाँ तो 47 21 हमारा 45 बैंकिंग का उसमें वो क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशन टाइप का वो एन टाइप वाला टाइम में क्या टाइम मंथ्स वो जाएगा बैंकिंग में मंथ्स फाइंड आउट करके क्वाड्रेटिक हां वो क्वाड्रेटिक फॉर्मूला यूज करती फॉर्मूला लाऊंगी ना मैंने बोला था फॉर्मूला लाऊंगी तो एक क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशन आता है मंथ्स फाइंड आउट करने तो वो तो है तो क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशन से फैक्टर्स ही हां फैक्टर्स कौन सा होता है 202
your teacher test
and banking अरे होता ना मेरा एग्जाम्स में जैसे आपके लगभग फैक्टर्स होते हैं मेरे कैरेक्टर्स पे जरा कैसे मेरा तो
ऑप्शंस लगते हैं
एक मार्क के साथ अरे चलो एक बार चेक तो ये फोल्डर से कैसे गूगल कर टर्म भी अच्छा करेंगे ना अरे किसी चीज की फटा डाले टेंशन होती मेरी बात से तो रहता है आपको तो से लगा है तो
कितने मार्क्स देगा
अच्छा 40 40 तो मेरे से मार्क्स और 100
सबने देखा मैंने बताया
तेरे को बोल रहा है तो पढ़ता है
अच्छा है
मेरे Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
How are you?
Good job.
You are saying fine. Why the fine has got no strength in it? Huh? Say what she says. Good. Very good. With so much of enthusiasm. What about you all? कैसे हुआ exam? Exam था ना? Only you all. Kodar only?
Yeah. Kodar
And your exams? Next week से है. अच्छा. Okay. Last month which chapter we were doing for you all?
Chemical coordination.
Huh?
Yes.
And break your bones also and break your school also.
Ma'am, let ma'am go.
What?
That this lesson is on chemical coordination.
तो पहले तुम लोग को बोला था पढ़ने के लिए?
हाँ
इसी लेवल
तो अभी पनिशमेंट ये होगा कि तुम लोग बाकी लोगों को अभी पढ़ाओ। पढ़ा सकते हो ना तन्मय? नहीं? How was it? So exam? All over? All over, no? Yes. All done. How did you do?
Yes, ma'am. I did fine.
Good.
Good, ma'am.
And तुम लोग का कब है exam?
28. From 28.
28. 28. You are the same, no? All of you same school, no?
Exam happened.
Already done. How was it?
Very good.
Very good. Acha, tell me the marks. You? Same school?
Yeah. Today was biology.
Acha. Which school is this?
Sadhu.
Sadhu was one. Today was biology.
Yes.
How was it?
It was good.
Yeah, this was 40 mark paper?
Yes, ma'am.
40 mark paper? Sure. Good. Answer all nicely. Okay. What do you think? Which chapter?
Mama was absent last class.
Which chapter we were doing?
Chemical coordination.
Chemical coordination was for your class.
genetics
Genetics you did not finish. In the regular class, what we were doing?
genetics completed
And I think we were supposed to start photosynthesis.
Yes, ma'am.
So in that case, chemical coordination, I'm not taking it now. In the regular, like, what happened? Why are you so sad? Huh? No, not sad, no? So now, When we are talking about, we're already finished with genetics. We're all now in this chapter we are finished with transpiration done. No?
Yes.
Absorption, transpiration done. So at one go, I want to finish with photosynthesis also. So for your exam, portions are all done now, no? All done. So we'll finish with photosynthesis. After that, we'll move on to some other chapters, and when we do endocrine glands, I want to take endocrine glands and chemical coordination together if there is no other priority in your school, because these two chapters we should teach together. Similar chapters they are, you understand much better that way. So let us now take photosynthesis. Let us now take photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. First of all, when we are talking about this process, photosynthesis is not a new concept at all. Of course, you are going to learn a lot of detail which you have not studied in other classes, other standards. But when we are talking about the concept of photosynthesis, what can you tell me about this? Is this chapter over in school?
Yes.
For you all over. Achha. What can you tell me about photosynthesis?
It's the process through which plant produce food. They make food and then transport it to other parts of the plant, especially the leaves.
It is the plant by which, it is the process by which plant produces what you said?
Plant makes food and then it transports the food from the leaves to other areas, other parts of the plant.
The transporting concept is not necessary. First you tell me what is the process about. Photosynthesis is about what? This word describes what?
The process by which a leaf takes in carbon dioxide and sunlight to form an glucose.
Plant produces organic food from inorganic or raw material
substances. Correct. So when we are talking about, let me see, my movie opens up or not. I don't know what happens here. Who can fix this? Who can fix this? Chocolate vanilla. So now, when you are talking about the process of photosynthesis, the definition should be very clear. What are you trying to study? What are you trying to study here? The word photosynthesis we already know. No? This word already has come across. What are you trying to study here? We are trying to study a process which is happening in. क्यों सब बंद है? AC चाहिए. हाँ तो AC ऑन करो ना. रिमोट नहीं है क्या? अरे He's searching remote in his bag. So now that we are talking about the process of photosynthesis, we are studying special parts of the plant has the capacity of trapping solar energy. And by trapping solar energy and also with the usage of some components of the atmosphere, they can prepare organic food. But what is the benefit we enjoy? Now the plants are producing, now that I talk about. That in this process, we are going to understand, yes, the plants are able to produce the organic food. The plants are producing organic food. But why should we be happy about it? The plants are producing organic food. Is that of any benefit for us?
Yes.
Yes, because that organic food is a main source of food for us also. So if you start with this concept, photosynthesis, what are we trying to study here? We are trying to study the biochemical process by which green plants can make organic food with the usage of what? With the usage of carbon dioxide, sunlight, chlorophyll, and carbon dioxide, chlorophyll, water, and sunlight. So when you write down the definition, these ketones should be there. Organic food, chlorophyll, sunlight, water. Chlorophyll, water, carbon dioxide. Sunlight is as it is there. Sunlight you write, very good. Even if you miss, not a problem, but you should write it. So we should write down the main three components which are necessary for the process. Let us start with this. What is photosynthesis? The biochemical process. The biochemical process in which green plants produce organic food. Green plants produce organic food. What do you understand by organic food? Glucose. Green plants produce organic food with the help of or utilizing carbon dioxide, sunlight, water and chlorophyll. So here we are talking about that yes, the green plants are capable of undergoing a particular biochemical process by which they get organic food in the form of glucose. Which are some of the parts of the plant? So if I have to talk about which are some of the plant parts, which are some of the parts of the plant that undergo this process, which are some of the parts of the plant where this particular process can happen, which are some of the parts, which are some of the structures which would generally show this process. What to write? The green leaves, obviously. Why did we mention this word green leaves? Why not the word leaves? Why green leaves? Because there are some leaves which can be orange. There are some leaves which can be red. These are not primarily the site for the process of photosynthesis. Because whenever we talk about in the last standard, 9th standard में plastids पढ़ा है?
Yes.
क्या पढ़ा plastids?
Three types of plastids, chloroplast, chloroplast and leucoplast.
हाँ. अभी जो chromoplast है, is it capable of undergoing the process of photosynthesis? No. So now that we talk about the details of this concept, that chromoplast जो होता है, chromoplast is another type of a cell organelle, and it can also give rise to various different type of pigments, like the carotenoids, like the xanthophylls and the flavonoids, etc., etc. But unlike chlorophyll, they don't have the capacity of trapping the sunlight, and hence they cannot undergo the process of formation of glucose. नहीं हो सकता. But yes, they can help in storage and they can give a color to the leaves and the fruit and the flower. That much only. So that's why writing green leaves is necessary when you are talking about the definition. Parts of the plant which show the process of photosynthesis. Green leaves. और क्या हो सकता है? और क्या हो सकता है? Young green stem. Young green stem. Young green stem. And there are some specialized structures also in the leaf which undergo the process of photosynthesis. When I talk about the guard cells of the stomata, they also undergo the process of photosynthesis. So the process of photosynthesis is very much to understand that yes, as long as the part of the plant has got adequate amount of chloroplast capable of producing chlorophyll, the process can happen. So parts. Now that we talk about that, what is exactly happening in this process? Now that we are talking about the process of photosynthesis, we are a little bit aware about what is happening, where is this process happening. Now, when we try understanding the process, what is the overall chemical equation? We start with the next concept. What is the overall chemical equation that we are supposed to always understand? 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 12 molecules of water in the presence of sunlight. In the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll results in the formation of 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen, 6 molecules of water. This is the overall chemical equation that you should write. Sometimes you will come across in some text written 6 molecules of water. This is not very correct. Why? Because if you are writing 6 molecules of water, then you cannot write this one. And when you don't write this as it is the equation, is again not appropriate because the process of photosynthesis always releases water as a byproduct. So the concept is, whenever we are talking about the process of photosynthesis, photosynthesis always releases water is a byproduct, and ये होने के लिए the process always runs at a surplus of water. For the process of photosynthesis, surplus of water is very much necessary. So that's why the most relevant equation is this to write down. The most relevant equation is this. Sometimes you may get some one-mark question. This is a very common question that you get in the paper. Write down the overall chemical equation, 1 mark ke liye aata hai. And sometimes you may have to choose between two chemical equations, which is the most appropriate. Then, if the equation goes something this way, then you are not supposed to choose this. You are supposed to choose this 12 molecules of water. That's the most appropriate reaction. Please remember. Now that we talk about this, let us now look at the next concept based on the overall chemical equation. On this, first of all, we talk about that what are some of the raw materials that is getting involved in this chemical equation. What are some of the raw materials? Raw materials means what of equation or a process that we talk about, reactants. So, यहाँ पे we will not generally call them as reactants because we are not talking about the reaction between sodium and chloride. But here we are talking about certain components getting used up. Certain components are getting used up. So now when we are talking about the concept of, okay, see here, again, I already told you, sometimes you will come across this type of an equation. I would not say that it is a wrong equation, but it is not a very relevant equation. सबसे important, appropriate क्या है? सबसे appropriate, we should always write 12 molecules of water. Achha, now, first of all, when we are talking about this, we had been talking about the concept of photosynthesis, where does it happen? And now we look into the most appropriate overall chemical equation, the most appropriate overall chemical equation. And in this, wait, I'll show you. The most appropriate overall chemical equation should always be written this way. Where is the one? In your book, what they have given, check. In your book, what they have given, check. 12, huh? It should be 12. Correct. Never mind. So now that we are talking about, let us start this way. We talk about the raw materials. We talk about the raw materials. I said, what are some of the raw materials? We look into the left side of the equation. Let us talk about the left side of the equation. And in the left side of the equation, we come across that the first to mention would be carbon dioxide. The first to mention would be carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, how does the plant get this carbon dioxide? The plant is getting the carbon dioxide from where? It is getting it from the atmosphere. What type of structures are basically involved in this process? What type of structures, if you see here, we are talking about that if this is the leaf and cut the leaf in a section, you are also going to come across that this leaf will have fine pores on the lower epidermis majorly. On the lower epidermis. Now, if I talk about the leaf in a section, the leaf has got the upper epidermis. The leaf has got the lower epidermis. And in between, there are some specialized group of cells which are rich in chloroplast. These are basically called the mesophyll cells. So now if you are asked, which are the specialized group of cells which undergo the process of photosynthesis, your answer is always mesophyll cells. Your answer is mesophyll cells are the sites, specific sites of the leaves. Again, I mentioned, either if you look into the section of a leaf, the leaf may have epidermal cells which does not have chloroplast and they are not the site of photosynthesis. But the leaf has these type of cells. क्या बोलेंगे इसको? Mesophyll. These are known as the mesophyll cells. And the mesophyll cells again can be of two types. The mesophyll cells are again of two types. What are the two types? These single layer of cells are the palisade mesophyll, rich in chloroplasts, main sites of photosynthesis. What about this spongy mesophyll, which are in many layers? They also have chloroplast, comparatively lesser. Okay. So which are the cells involved? Name the cells involved. The cells involved are mesophyll cells. Never mind. This type of cells can be of two types. One is known as the palisade mesophyll and the other is known as the spongy mesophyll. Okay. Go back to this concept again. I said this particular process requires carbon dioxide. How does the leaf get the carbon dioxide? How does the leaf get the carbon dioxide? From the atmosphere. With the help of specialized structures known as the stomata. And what process? Diffusion. Process is diffusion. So what is the definition of diffusion?
The free movement of molecules from the ratio to low concentration.
Low concentration. So ये जो outside environment है, atmosphere that I am talking about, carbon dioxide is more here. Free movement from a region of high to low. So that's a simple thing to understand. I talk about the next one. Water. From where will the leaves get the water? Soil. From the soil. What structure? Root hairs. Root hairs. Root hairs. You already studied this. Process. Process. Process osmosis. Process osmosis. Osmosis की definition कौन बताएगा?
Movement of water particles from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration through semi-terminal.
Excellent. So now that we are talking about ये दो major components है. Yes, the plants are getting these two major components. These two major components of the process of photosynthesis. Next, we will study this one. Chlorophyll. You are asked, what is chlorophyll? What is the definition of the word chlorophyll? What are you supposed to write? क्या लिखना है?
Pigment produced by chloroplasts which trap sunlight.
A better one?
The green pigment which traps sunlight and helps the leaves to produce food, make food.
Definition क्या लिखोगे? You are asked for 1 mark. Define chlorophyll. ये जो definition section दिखाया ना अभी in your question paper. In that definition section, chlorophyll also comes. Define chlorophyll. What are you supposed to write? The green colored photosynthetic pigments produced by chloroplasts or synthesized by chloroplasts. So what is the definition of chlorophyll? Green colored photosynthetic pigments produced by the chloroplast. So that's the definition of this one. So now that we are talking about chlorophyll, we are very much sure that this chlorophyll is produced by a cell organelle known as the chloroplast. The chloroplast, the concept of the chloroplast, if you remember that the cell has, the plant cells has the chloroplast. Now when we are talking about the concept of chloroplast, how does the chloroplast look like and what are some of the parts that you should remember now? If I talk about the chloroplast, yes, the chloroplast is a double-walled cell organelle, almost like the mitochondria. When we talk about the features of the mitochondria, quite common like the chloroplast. But some specialized features that we try understanding is that the chloroplast has got these type of some coin-like structures or some disc-like structures in a stack bundle, almost about 10, 15, 10, 15, 10, 12 of them always together. And they are always stacked up like this, and they also remain connected this way. Then what are these single disc or coin-like structures known as? This single disc or coin-like structure is known as thylakoid. This is called thylakoid. When we are talking about this word, thylakoid, what is a thylakoid? A disc-like structure of the chloroplast, which is the main site for the synthesis of chlorophyll. What is a thylakoid? Thylakoid is a disc-like structure, of the chloroplast, which synthesizes chlorophyll. So it is synthesizing and storing also. Remember, the thylakoid is not only synthesizing, but it is storing also. Something like, if I talk about a single thylakoid in a magnified manner, I may understand that ये जो disc-like structure है, this disc-like structure is producing the molecules, and on the inner wall, the molecules are stored also like this. You are asked questions. Name the site of chlorophyll synthesis. Thylakoid. Where is chlorophyll stored? Thylakoid. So thylakoids are these disc-like structures where the pigment chlorophyll is produced also and stored also. Okay. Now one more thing that you have to remember is that just now I said that there is always a stack of some 10, 12, 10, 15 of this together. Then what is this bundle of the thylakoid called? This bundle of the thylakoid is called granum. Granum. And if I say two of them together, then I should write grana. Then what is the difference between the grana and the granum? Singular plural. I talk about one stack, granum. Many of them together, grana. So what is a grana? Or what is a granum? A stack of thylakoids. What is a granum? A stack of thylakoids. Function of thylakoid just now we discussed. But now, this the thylakoids that we are talking about, or the granum that we are talking about, is present on some ground substance, something like a cytoplasm. Something like a cytoplasm. So, this ground substance को क्या बोलेंगे? This ground substance is known as stroma. Ground substance is known as stroma. So what are we learning here? We are learning that now that we talk about the word chlorophyll, which is a green colored photosynthetic pigment, this chlorophyll is constantly getting produced in a cell organelle known as chloroplast. You are asked questions in the different section. Differentiate between chloroplast and chlorophyll. क्या लिखना है? हाँ, निहाली क्या हुआ? हाँ? तन्मय, क्या बैकग्राउंड म्यूजिक दे रहे हो? बोलो, अभी आंसर तुम ही बोलो. What is the difference between chloroplast and chlorophyll? क्या लिखोगे? निहाली, chloroplast and chlorophyll क्या लिखना है?
Chloroplast is a structure which produces
Structure. Second standard में हो. Chloroplast is a
cell organelle.
Organelle, cell organelle. And chlorophyll is a photosynthetic pigment. Difference between chlorophyll and chloroplast. Take the first question. Right. One difference. Okay. तुम्हारा ये नोटबुक का ये हाल क्यों है? हाँ, ये एनसाइक्लोपीडिया लग रहा है मुझे तो. हाँ, पिछले वाले पेजेस में क्या है? मैथ्स है. चलो, first question. Write one difference between chloroplast and chlorophyll. फटाफट. One difference between chloroplast, chlorophyll. Make a table. Write down one difference. Make one difference. Write the table. Make the table. Write one difference. Chloroplast, chlorophyll. Difference between chloroplast, chlorophyll. Right. What are you supposed to write down? Chloroplast is a cell organelle present in the mesophyll cells of leaves. Chloroplast, cell organelle present in the mesophyll cells of leaves, comma, guard cells of stomata. Mesophyll cells. देखो, I already given you this word. Mesophyll cells of leaves, comma, guard cells of stomata. Guard cells of stomata. Other side, chlorophyll. For that you write green colored pigment. Green colored pigment produced. Green colored pigment produced by the thylakoids of chloroplast. Green colored pigments produced by the thylakoids of chloroplast. Done. Thylakoids of chloroplast. Done. So difference between the chloroplast, chlorophyll you are supposed to know. So now with this reference, now remember these two words you are supposed to understand in the later part of the chapter also. What is stroma? What is grana? Now, the grana and the stroma are the two major sites of the chloroplast as an organelle where the process completes, where the process starts, where the process completes. Now, in the concept of photosynthesis, we are just writing a overall chemical reaction. We're just writing an overall chemical reaction. Does this process involve, or is this process only consisting of one reaction? Of course not. We understand that when we study the process of photosynthesis in detail, it has got a large number of chemical reactions, stepwise. So we are talking about almost about 25-30 reactions that completes the process. We are just learning the overall chemical equation kya hai, skeletal reaction kya hai. So we are talking about that stroma, and grana are the primary sites where the process will happen. Let us complete with the other side also, then we move on. So here now, as I talk about the other side, now I'm talking about the raw materials, now I'm talking about the products. I talk about the products now. What are the products and what are their fate? क्या होता है वो products का क्या होता है now that they are formed? So first of all, I talk about the word glucose, organic food. What happens to glucose? What happens to glucose? What happens to glucose?
It gets converted to starch.
हाँ, ये एक प्रोसेस है और दूसरा प्रोसेस क्या होना चाहिए?
Metabolism, growth, metabolism.
नहीं,
Energy.
नहीं. ये जो glucose which has got formed, always remember what is the fate of the glucose. So first you are asked.
Name the form of starch.
हाँ, that already she said. अच्छा, now I'm talking about name the primary product of photosynthesis. Name the main product of photosynthesis. What should be your answer? Glucose. Name the products of photosynthesis. What should be your answer? Glucose, oxygen, water. Name the byproducts of photosynthesis. What should be your answer? Oxygen and water. You understand? No? The questions are different. Along with that, the answers have to. Not that you keep on writing all the three at the time. What is asked? Primary product. Then it is only glucose to be written. That's the primary product. Now, this glucose, when it is getting formed, what happens to this? एक pathway ये है that this glucose gets converted to sucrose, and then it gets dissolved. Or if I write the other way, that it would get dissolved and now in the soluble form distributed. It is distributed in the soluble form. It is distributed in the soluble form by phloem. What is this process called? This process is called translocation. This process is called translocation. So what I told you just now, ये जो glucose है, the glucose that is getting formed, a fraction of this glucose gets converted into sucrose. कौन बताएगा? कौन सा complex है? Glucose complex है कि sucrose complex है?
Glucose.
सोहम माफ पड़ेगा तुमको. Glucose complex है.
Sucrose is disaccharide.
Disaccharide. याद है? Sucrose is disaccharide. Glucose is monosaccharide. याद है प्रशंसा? पढ़ा नहीं होगा वो चैप्टर, वो ऑनलाइन सैंडविच खाते खाते पढ़ा ना, इसीलिए ये हालत है. So now that we are talking about glucose and sucrose, what is the difference? Glucose is the simplest form, monosaccharide, and disaccharide complex. क्योंकि ये disaccharide मतलब two molecules together. So always to understand, glucose gets converted. If they become more complex, they are not becoming more simpler. If you plant cells में, animal cells में, this cannot get broken into anything simpler apart from the process of cellular respiration. So that is what to understand. This is getting a bit complex and then getting soluble in the plant cells have, and then getting distributed by the phloem cells. And if that is the process, we call it as translocation. What would be the second step? The second step is the glucose is getting stored in the form of starch in the different type of plant parts, leaves, fruits, seeds, stem, different parts. So what is this particular process called? This particular process is called polymerization. This particular process is called polymerization. So what is the difference now that you understand translocation and polymerization? What is polymerization? The excess amount of glucose is always stored in the form of starch. अभी excess amount क्यों बोलेंगे? Because a particular plant has got hundreds and hundreds of leaves. Every single leaf will have almost about 60-70 every single leaf will have again hundreds of these mesophyll cells, and every single cell will have almost about 60 to 70 chloroplasts. Every single cell, I may understand in a leaf, there will be hundreds of mesophyll cells, and every single cell having almost about 60-70 chloroplasts. And now that I talk about a leaf and one small square millimeter area that has thousands and thousands of chloroplasts. One small square millimeter area of a leaf will have thousands and thousands of chloroplasts. Chloroplast is the main site of photosynthesis. So we have to understand, if I talk about a plant is actually preparing much amount of food than what is actually necessary for the plant at that time. The plant prepares so much in surplus. The food prepared by the plant is so much in surplus. A fraction is getting converted into sucrose and getting distributed, and there's a huge amount still left to be converted into the form of starch to be used later. So get acquainted with these two processes: translocation and polymerization. Translocation and polymerization. So this is about the concept of raw materials, main product. Now that we talk about oxygen, let me just complete here with this. Oxygen, now that I talk about, this is the main byproduct. Oxygen is the main byproduct. Oxygen is the main byproduct. You will come across now when we go to the next topic that this oxygen is the source of release of oxygen, the source of release. What is the source of release? The source of release of oxygen is the water molecule. What will be the fate of this oxygen? Most of it released into the atmosphere, and some of it will be used for photorespiration. So that means if I talk about a particular plant, that particular plant, every single leaf, the stomata that it has, the stomata gives away so much of oxygen to the atmosphere, but small amount it keeps for itself. So if I'm talking about a plant, every single plant or the leaf, by the way of the leaf, almost about 85 to 90% roughly we understand of the oxygen is released into the atmosphere. And it is only about 4 to 5%, 7% of it that the plant keeps for itself. Why? For a process known as photorespiration. Now, what is the meaning of this word photorespiration? The plant cells also have to break down the glucose to release energy. Respiration, does the plant cells undergo? Yes. Of course, not the concept of breathing to talk about. But yes, what is the meaning of cellular respiration? Cellular respiration means the breakdown of the glucose to release energy. Can you give me 5 reasons why should the plant need energy? Growth, repair, cell division, growth, repair. What else? Transport of the food, इसके लिए भी तो energy चाहिए. Transport of the water minerals, इसके लिए भी तो energy चाहिए. So the entire process of growth of the seed, fruit, leaf, repair, leaves are falling down, new leaves coming, repair. And the entire process of fertilization, हाँ उसके लिए भी चाहिए. And the process of conduction of the water minerals, xylem, उसके लिए भी. Conduction of the food by the fluid, उसके लिए भी. So there are so many reasons why the plant should get adequate amount of energy by the process of photorespiration. So here we are more or less aware about the entire overall chemical equation, what are the raw materials and what are the products. Now next we are going to come across that photosynthesis, we understand it is not a single step process, and we are very much aware that the process of photosynthesis very well has a large number of chemical steps one after the other. Some steps very much require an adequate intensity of sunlight to happen. An adequate intensity of sunlight. At the same time, there are some steps which does not require an adequate intensity of sunlight at all. So based on that, when we are talking about the process of photosynthesis, we are going to study next. ये जो पूरा process of photosynthesis है, which involves a large number of chemical reactions. Some of these chemical reactions require sunlight, and some of them does not require sunlight. So उस basis पे we can divide the phases into two groups. Photosynthesis can be divided into two phases. What are those two phases? One is light phase. What is it also called? Photochemical phase. Photochemical phase. What is it also called? Okay. So now that we are talking about light phase, what is the meaning of this? We are talking about a set of reactions, and in this set of reactions, there is requirement of a specific intensity of sunlight. So, what are some of the reactions that we can understand? सबसे पहले ये समझना जरूरी है. Now that we are talking about the light phase, in this case, first of all, we are very much to understand when does these reactions happen. When does these reactions happen? These reactions will happen only during the daytime. Light phase, the moment you talk about, these reactions will happen only during the daytime. Can these reactions happen now? No. Can these reactions happen early morning by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock? No. तुम्हारा मर्जी थोड़ी है. So now that we are talking about this particular process, don't mind, huh? That's my way of talking. So now that we are talking about this particular process, this particular process requires a specific way of, a specific intensity of sunlight. Q, the major reason is this, chlorophyll. This chlorophyll needs to be activated first of all. अब ये chlorophyll activation के लिए एक particular intensity of sunlight की जरूरत है. बहुत कम sunlight रहेगा, chlorophyll does not get activated. जब तक chlorophyll activated नहीं होगा, process start ही नहीं हो सकता. अब again, if I say that chlorophyll activation के लिए एक specific intensity of light की जरूरत है, again, does that mean the rate of photosynthesis is very good going at about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock on a bright sunny day, or maybe 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on a bright sunny day? तुम्हारी मर्जी नहीं है. So again, no, again, on a bright sunny day, both ways you try to understand. Again, I said 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, the process cannot start because the intensity of sunlight is very low. Activation of the chlorophyll नहीं हो सकता. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, the intensity of sunlight is at its highest. Again, the process stops. क्यों? ये chlorophyll जो activated है, that starts getting denatured, breakdown हो जाता है. This chlorophyll is a very light sensitive pigment. It's a pigment, it's photosynthetic pigment we say, no? It is a very sensitive pigment. Only on a particular intensity of sunlight it can work. Higher intensity में it will start breaking down. Lower intensity में it will not get activated. So only on a particular intensity of sunlight the process can run. Only on a particular intensity. Maybe now I understand by 7 o'clock, by 6 o'clock the process will start, and maybe by 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, yes. उसके बाद जैसे ही the temperature and the intensity of sunlight will be very high, the process slows down and stops. So here we are talking about now the process of photosynthesis. Now that I talk about the first phase, light phase. कब होता है? कहाँ होता है? Where does it happen? It happens only in the grana. Now you know what is grana. What is grana? Bundle of thylakoids, a stack of thylakoids. A stack of thylakoids. So now, when we are talking about the light reaction, what are some of the prominent reactions? Let us start understanding. ये बहुत important है. What are some of the prominent reactions to understand so far light reaction is concerned? Some of the prominent reactions that we have to understand would be, we'll go into these theories later. Let us learn those phases first. What are some of the prominent reactions? Let us start understanding. The first one is activation of chlorophyll. I'll show you another slide. We are talking, the first one is activation of chlorophyll. Already I talked about this. What is the first step? The first reaction. The first step is what? The first step is activation of chlorophyll. Activation of these steps are very important for you. You get always questions of this. Activation of chlorophyll. What did I talk about just now? I said chlorophyll is a very specific light sensitive pigment. At a very low intensity, it will not get activated, and at a very high intensity, it will get denatured. So what happens? I talked about the word denature. Remember the word denature. What is the meaning of denature? Breaking down. Denature means breaking down. A pigment, can a pigment get broken down? Yes, because it's a chemical composition. No? It's a chemical composition. The bonds will break. Okay, one thing more to understand is, now that I talk about the word chlorophyll, what is the chemical composition? That also you are asked. What is the chemical composition of the chlorophyll? It is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and magnesium. ये याद रखना है. It is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, magnesium is a very important component of chlorophyll. What is chlorophyll? Sometimes you are asked this as 1 mark question also. Name the mineral element predominantly present in chlorophyll. Magnesium, not manganese. Magnesium is. So now that we talk about activation of chlorophyll, yes, activation of chlorophyll is the first and the initiating step to start the process. What is necessary? What is necessary? A photon is necessary. What is the meaning of a photon? A unit of light. A specific unit of light that can stimulate and activate the pigment. Now the pigment is ready. It is something like waking up the pigment. And now that the pigment is awoke, now what will happen? The pigment is now ready to trap sunlight. And the process starts. So what is a photon? Now that we talk about what is a photon? A photon is a unit of light necessary for activating the chlorophyll. Step 2. What is the next step? The second step is photolysis. What is the meaning of photolysis? Breakdown of the water molecule. Breakdown of water molecule. Where is this process happening? Where is this step happening? Photolysis or हाँ मेसोफिल सेल्स तो है ही, बट मेसोफिल सेल्स के कहाँ पे हो रहा है? What is the exact site of photolysis? Grana. Grana. All these steps now that we are talking about is all of these are happening in the grana. Remember, as long as we study light reactions, all happening in the grana. You are asked question, what is the site of photolysis? Grana. Grana. You are talking about mesophyll cells. That's also correct. But mesophyll cells ke kahan pe? In the chloroplast. Chloroplast ke kahan pe? Stroma ki grana? Grana. In the grana, not in the stroma. So we are talking about photolysis. So now this equation for photolysis is very much important for you. Water molecule gets broken down to electrons and 2 molecules of oxygen. That's the balanced form, no? Yeah, oxygen. This equation you should remember, all of you. Photolysis is a very, very important question that always comes either for difference or for 1 mark question, reason, explanation, anything. So what are you understanding here? What is photolysis? Breakdown of the water molecule in the presence of light, of course. No, we are talking about the word photolysis. What is the meaning of photo? Light. Lysis or lysis, breakdown. So we are talking about the breakdown of water in the presence of light happening in the grana, happening in the thylakoid. And now what are we getting? Hydrogens, electrons, hydrogen ions, electrons, and oxygen. Now go to that concept that I have written down there. Oxygen is released as a byproduct in the process. You are always asked this question. What is the source of oxygen released during the process of photosynthesis? क्योंकि if you check, इसमें भी तो oxygen है, इसमें भी oxygen है. From where do you get the oxygen release? Is it from the breakdown of the carbon dioxide or it is from the breakdown of the water? Always should remember, oxygen is released by the breakdown of the water molecule. Oxygen is released by the breakdown of the water molecule. Next is what? We talk about the third step. We talk about the third step. In the third step, you have to understand the process known as reduction of NADP. Reduction of NADP. That's the third step. Reduction of NADP. What is it? NADP plus hydrogen ions you are supposed to write. NADP plus electrons plus hydrogen ions. This also you can write down. This will give rise to NADPH. This will give rise to NADPH. Now, you are supposed to know the full form. What is NADP? NADP, if you have to write down the balanced equation. NADP is what? Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. And what about this? What about this one? Nicotinamide. I'm just writing up here. Huh? I'm just writing it up. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide hydrogen phosphate. Got it? So the third step that we are writing down is, what is the third step we wrote? The third step that we are talking about is reduction of NADP. Now what is NADP actually? What is NADP? It's an energy molecule. It's an energy molecule like ATP. When ATP first of all gets broken down, it releases adequate amount of energy. At the same time, when NADP starts getting broken down, it also can release additional 2 ATP molecules, just like that. So when we are talking about what is NADP actually? NADP is actually a energy-rich molecule. It is an energy molecule. What is the fourth step now to understand? Photophosphorylation. Photophosphorylation. What is it? Photophosphorylation that we are talking about is ADP plus inorganic phosphate results in the formation of ATP. What is ADP? Adenosine diphosphate. And what is this that you have to write? What is it? Inorganic phosphate. Inorganic phosphate. And what do you write this side? Adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. So what are we writing here? The 4 steps. The 4 main steps, the 4 main reactions of light reaction, Hill reaction. Remember, we are only writing down the primary reaction. This is not the only 4 reactions of the light reaction the light phase has. We are talking about the primary reactions. So what are the primary reactions we are talking about? First of all is activation of chlorophyll. Second is photolysis. This is very, very important for you. Photolysis. Third is reduction of NADP. What happens? What is the product? What are the names that you have to remember? And the fourth step is also you get questions on. The fourth step is photophosphorylation. What is photophosphorylation? The formation of ATP from ADP and PI. This ATP can again get broken down actually to release 2-phosphate and become AMP, adenosine monophosphate. So that is how the process of formation happens. So the 4 steps. Take one question now. Write one difference between photolysis and phosphorylation. You may complete this as homework, but tell me what you are supposed to write. पहले question लिखो. Write one difference between photolysis and phosphorylation or photophosphorylation. One difference between photolysis and photophosphorylation. क्या लिखना है? First you make a table. If possible, we may finish. क्या लिखना है? फोटोलिसिस में क्या लिखेंगे फटाफट? One difference. Breakdown of water molecule to release hydrogen, hydrogenized electrons and oxygen. Photophosphorylation में क्या लिखेंगे? Formation of ATP by the combination of or the reaction of ATP and inorganic oxygen. लिखो, complete करो. Let's take 1 minute. हाँ, पहले ये लिखो photolysis. लिखा photolysis, breakdown of the water molecule to release. Breakdown of the water, exactly यही लिखना है. Breakdown of the water molecule to release hydrogenized electrons and oxygen. Breakdown of the water molecule to release hydrogen ions, electrons and oxygen. And the other side, photophosphorylation में लिखो photophosphorylation. For that column you write formation of ATP from formation of ATP from ADP and PI. Formation of ATP from ADP and PI. Capital P, small I. Take a note of that also. ये I capital नहीं लिखते हैं. Capital P, small I. ठीक है? Now go through this part of the chapter. हो गया उसका फोन शुरू हो गया. किसका है? One का phone है. Never mind. I'm not going to take your phone. Don't worry. Now read this part of the chapter. जो भी यहाँ तक समझ नहीं आया, you will understand once you go through the chapter, and then if there's anything, ask me. Next class again we are going to continue. Formation of ATP from ADP and PI. Correct. Breakdown of the water molecule to release. No, not this way. But write down this. Hydrogen ions, not only in words.
Can we write the question instead of candidate? Occurrence of Icse.
Where is it happening? In the higher parts, in the grammar.
अब इसे जानना चाहिए. अभी भी कोई तो बात नहीं.
बारिश क्यों हो रही है? अभी बारिश बंद हो गई है।